Hi. All right. I had to go back and do a little arithmetic for this next question. So, yeah, here we go. Uh, this question is from Philip. Good morning, Philip. Yeah, and thanks for writing in. So, the question is anything known about the ultimate fate of the total COVID 19 load within a human that is infected? Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah. That is, what fraction is eliminated, in feces, urine, nasal secretions, saliva, perspiration, digested by stomach? I've enjoyed the group through this whole experience. Thanks. Yes, thanks. I'm glad it's helping somebody. All right. So, in order to answer that question, first you got to answer the question. All right, so what's the total load of SARS coronavirus 2 in a human body that is infected? Yeah, and that's a good question. So, what do we know about the location? So, we've got a patch at the back of the nose. We have the possibility that the virus is growing in cells in the throat. And we definitely have the lungs, at least some part of those. The nose is hard to estimate. It's not a lot of square area, and the throat likewise. I haven't seen a lot of research on this. There may be some infectable cells there. I am not absolutely sure, or if it's just virus that's coming up from the lungs. But the lungs, we've got a decent estimate. So apparently, according to Wikipedia, the average lung is somewhere between 50 and 75 square meters. So, okay, fine. And what we know from some work that was done by Philip Vikovsky and Volker Thiel, among others, is that you can take human airway epithelial cultures. And some other labs, I think the Barrick lab, have actually taken them from different parts of the airway. But anyway, you can just take these. It's just a batch of lung cells, and they'll either come from a biopsy on a living person or from a person who's died and donated their body to science. And you can get this little vial of cells, and if you put them in a special little tray, you take a thing called a 24 well plate, which it's like 24 little petri dishes that are kind of glued together and have a base around them and a lid that covers all of them. And into each one of these wells, and each well you can imagine is about a square centimeter. That's roughly right. I think the diameter they said was no, the diameter was I think 13 millimeters. So yeah, that's about right. And on this thing, you put the cells on this little tray, and so the tray is exposed to the air on top, but on the sides and the bottom, it's got the growth medium, and so it's going to be fed from the inside, just as if it was in your lung, and the bloodstream was feeding it, and the other side was exposed to the air. And in these conditions, the cells will reorganize themselves and will make a little tiny lung on a little circle. It's really cool. Okay, so how much virus do these things produce? And which side do they produce from? From what I can see, it looks like about 10 to the fifth, which is, let's see, one with five zeros. So what is that? 100,000? Yeah, that's about right. 100,000 viruses per milliliter, and you won't get much more than 1 or 2 milliliters in one of those culture dishes. So I think that's reasonable. We can just take that as, yeah. So let's say every square centimeter of the lungs produces about 10 to the fifth virus particles. That's part of the equation. Well, actually, no, let's solve that part of the equation. Multiply that up, and if I'm doing the math right, and I think I'm at least pretty close, you're going to be in the neighborhood of 10 to the 10th to 10 to the 11th. And so 10 to the ninth would be a billion particles, and so 10 to the 10th is 10 billion to 100 billion particles within the lungs in total. And let's throw the back of the nose and whatever's going on in the throat in there. And so, all right, we got that. We got our 10 to 100 billion there. All right, so what's going on down in the intestines? Well, we think that probably whatever goes into the stomach mostly gets destroyed, but occasionally, somehow, a few of them make it through and start an infection in the lungs. The intestines, yeah. The lungs of the lower half of the body. And there, once again, it seems as though the virus is able to produce in cell culture made with little tiny bits of human intestine grown in test tubes. It's able to make about 10 to the fourth or 10 to the fifth viruses per mil. for a similar sized area. And so, yeah. Add these things together, and we're still in that same vicinity, because even 10 to the 10th plus 10 to the 10th is just 2 times 10 to the 10th, and that's still on the order of 10 to the 10th. So we're in that range from 10 billion to 100 billion viruses. And then once you've got that, you can say, okay, how long does a virus last? Best calculations I've seen say that something like a coronavirus is probably going to have a half-life on the order of a day or a day and a half. And so these things are constantly turning over. Now, they're super numerous, but they're super tiny. So they constitute just this tiny little fraction of your total biomass. There's never like a tumor-sized lump of coronavirus anywhere. It's just little tiny bits here and there, and the effects that each one of these little things has is massive. So we can't fully answer the question. We do know so far SARS coronavirus 1 was detected in the urine. I haven't seen that SARS coronavirus 2 has been yet. That may not be the case. Coronaviruses, as far as I'm aware, have not been detected in sweat. Some does come out in saliva, definitely, and that's all connected up with the nasal secretions. Those things share a pathway, and you're breathing in and out through all of that. And so those are probably just where particles that are growing elsewhere, like down in the lungs, are being trapped and are coming out. Virus in the intestines, yeah, we know there is plenty of it. Yeah, most of it seems to be inactivated right there in the intestines. So probably everything from the intestines comes out the intestines. Everything from the lungs probably is either destroyed, broken down, and recycled right there in the lungs. That's what's going to happen to most viruses, we think. And then just the tiniest little fraction of it will actually come out of a person. Something like 1/1,000,000th of the total virus would ever actually come out and have a chance to infect anybody else. Maybe that's a log high. It might be 1 in 100,000 viruses has a chance to get out and go somewhere and do something meaningful with its life. But remember, we're turning that over, making all those viruses anew, probably each day or each 2 days at the very most. And so, yeah, there's a lot of virus manufacture definitely going on inside of an infectious person. And compare this to the total number of people on Earth, which is what, 8 billion? And so inside of every infected person, you probably have enough virus that if it was split up just right, or whatever, just, if we're counting things, there's probably more virus particles in a person than there are actually people on the Earth. And that's in every single COVID patient, which is why we say, please wear a mask. Because, yeah, even 10,000th or 100,000th of the virus that's in your lungs is still an awful lot of virus and has the potential to do a lot of harm. So yeah, good question. Sorry I couldn't fully answer it. I haven't seen answers for all the parts of it, but it's kind of interesting to do that calculation. And boy, yeah, it kind of drives home how lucky we are that the outbreak hasn't been worse than it already has. So there we go. Thanks very much. This is Ask Dr. Ben.